All rise.
The Florida Supreme Court heard arguments Wednesday morning on whether the language in a ballot initiative, which would enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution, was clear enough to put before voters. The ballot summary reads, quote, "No law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health as determined by the patient's health care provider." The state argued the language is ambiguous and could lead to vastly different interpretations of the law and how to enforce it.
What I am hearing is that, no, this amendment is actually very, very broad. It's unambiguously broad. I don't think the ballot summary adequately discloses that potentiality. Some voters may suss it out. Other voters will not.
Chief Justice Carlos Muniz wasn't buying it.
People of Florida aren't stupid. I mean, they can figure this out.
Courtney Brewer, representing backers of the initiative, says they were very careful to choose language that would pass exactly this kind of legal review.
The words that are used are understood by voters in the context in which they are used. There is no question that voters understand what viability means in the abortion context.
Justice Meredith Sasso seemed to want specifics as to exactly when abortion would no longer be allowed under this amendment.
How do we expect the voters to understand the legal effect when there's no explanation at all given as to a legal effect? Every law that's been passed in Florida has been a categorical ban at a certain week.
Viability is generally accepted to begin at around 24 weeks. If passed, this amendment would nullify the state's current ban after 15 weeks, as well as the recently passed 6-week ban, both of which are still tied up in lawsuits. The conservative-leaning court is expected to make a decision on whether voters will decide on abortion in Florida by April 1st. Back to you.
Our team coverage continues now into the abortion battle, looking at concerns being raised by pro-choice activist groups. They claim that the restrictions can lead to a lack of access to maternity care in general. CBS 12 News I-Team investigator Danelda Ross has that story.
Doctors who treat pregnant women and perform abortions say this is about more than unplanned pregnancies. In fact, some tell the I-Team this decision has the potential to impact just about every woman of reproductive age in the state.
We're not just talking about elective abortions here.
As an OB/GYN at Planned Parenthood, Dr. Cherise Felix has seen firsthand the wide-ranging effects of abortion bans. She used to practice in Tennessee until the state banned most abortions in 2022.
When this happened in Tennessee and we had to turn so many people away, it was so tearful. It was just bad.
What was bad about it?
Being able to provide a service that you know would be beneficial for somebody, and then having people that are not even in the medical field say you can't do it, and then having to explain that to a patient.
Soon, Tennessee women looking for abortions had to travel to other states. Abortion providers did too. Dr. Felix moved her practice to West Palm Beach, and since then, Florida passed laws largely banning abortion after 15 weeks, then 6 weeks. Those laws are still tied up in the courts, but could go into effect in the future.
Can you foresee doctors making a decision that they don't want to practice in Florida?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
She says doctors don't want to practice where providing medical care can be criminalized. And according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, abortion restrictions can have ripple effects on access to care. ACOG points to research that suggests abortion restrictions impact medical students and residents' choices about where to study and practice. Even the March of Dimes, which keeps track of maternity care access across the country, raises concerns about the connection between access to care and restrictive abortion policy. Though in its 2022 report on what the organization calls maternity care deserts, the March of Dimes cited Florida as showing the most improvement in access to care of any state. Supporters of Florida's abortion restrictions say women in our state should not be concerned about there being enough doctors to go around.
When you hear people raise a concern about having enough doctors in Florida, what is your take on that issue?
That's a silly argument, and it will not come to fruition whatsoever. There will always be doctors in Florida. There will be plenty of doctors in Florida.
Linda Bell is the president of Florida Right to Life, an anti-abortion group. She doesn't expect to see an abortion-related doctor shortage, even if there might be fewer doctors who perform abortions.
There are the very few doctors that leave. I'm sure we'll have many more pro-life doctors to replace them. Not all doctors think that it's okay to kill an unborn child.
Both sides will be waiting for the Florida Supreme Court decision, preparing to mobilize quickly if the court allows the abortion initiative to go before Florida voters.